So hello everyone and welcome to the Thriving Relationship Show. I am your host, Christine Eartheart, and founder of the Center for Thriving Relationships. And I am so grateful and excited to have you here and to get to support you in experiencing more love, connection, ease, and understanding in your relationships. And if you are currently in the dating scene, you've probably experienced just how painful, exhausting, discouraging it can be. You may have spent weeks, months, even years swiping on dating apps or nurturing these connections with someone only to find out they are not your match at all. It can really be an emotional roller coaster. And even though we innately have this longing, we're all wanting to find the one, our special person. It is a part of our happiness and well-being. And yet it can be a complete mystery. Where do we find them? How do we find them? So if you can relate to this, I am so thrilled you are here. You are in the right place. You are in wonderful hands. And I can't wait to introduce you to Mia Lux, today's expert guest. Mia has a background actually as a stand-up comedian, so she's going to be a delight to have here. I love connecting with her. She's into personal growth and she's a recovering lawyer. She's been an international speaker and facilitator specializing in top wellness personal development events around the world. She's also the founder of Vette, which lights me up. I can't wait to dive in and hear so much more. It's an intentional dating app for self-aware singles. And it's been featured in Vogue, among many other places, and endorsed by many top names in the industry. Vette is a new way to connect, a video-first, comprehensive connection platform for intentional dating where all members are vetted and background checked at the door. At Vette, self-awareness is sexy, woo woo, and spontaneous chemistry is finally free to spark. So one of the lines in Vette is self-development over selfies. I love that. When I heard about Vette and Mia, I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is amazing. And it's like one of those dreams for the world I've held in my heart you have created. So I just can't thank you enough for everything that you've done and following your calling to do so and doing so masterfully. So welcome, Mia. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's so my pleasure to be here. And thank you for that beautiful, warm introduction. I know what you mean. I think you and I are both passionate about high quality, juicy, sustainable human connection. And I know, I think you and I in some ways are taking the two pieces of the puzzle, which is, how to deal with the actual relationship part of it, right? Because even once you found your person, that's the beginning of the journey. And you have got that covered. Thank you. But for me, exactly to your point, wow. I mean, I got divorced a couple of years ago and came out of a great marriage into being single. And I looked around the state of the world with like the dating apps and what they say that you should do to find love. And I was devastated. I was like, wow, this is the experience, the normal experience of finding love and dating now. I was like, this isn't good enough. And it's like a lot of people joke about dating, like, oh, the trope is like, oh, dating sucks and ha ha. But I'm like, no, our relationships are the most important piece of our life. This isn't some trivial, silly thing. This is like fundamental to our personal happiness, to our futures. I even would argue to our societal happiness. So I'm pretty hardcore about taking dating on, and I so appreciate your support with that.
Yeah, so thank you so much. And I know you've seen firsthand, like this was really born out of there's a need for this. Like I've just heard a little bit about your story. So can you share with everyone tuning in, what did you see that wasn't working and that was really heartbreaking that moved you to do this, or anything that you want to share, your own experience?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, and the cool thing is this, my personal experience, because often you have your experience go, well, maybe it was just me. But I've had my personal experience confirmed over and over again with the hundreds of people we've worked with and interviewed. Just the general singles experience out there. There's a real true through line, which is this. We now have to interact and meet with people through mostly these technological platforms, the apps, the sites. So we now have tech platforms moderating and managing how we connect, which isn't the end of the world, except when you look at how do they make money? This is what I try to explain to people. The apps and the sites largely want to keep you on the apps and the sites. They don't really care if you connect deeply and form a relationship. That's not their business model, right? And so as we know with social media, the amount of power that technology has over our compulsive dopamine needing brains is pretty high. And so I said, like, the apps are like the Instagram of love, and they're addictive, and we get stuck in them, and they're like, we're swiping. So what I found was, I came out of a wonderful marriage, did a beautiful conscious uncoupling, and I was really excited. I was like, listen, I'm ready to meet my person. I made a series of commitments around how I would behave in integrity. I was ready to go intentional dating, the whole thing. And then I went on the apps. And, for anyone who's single out there, I know you're going to hear this and go, oh my gosh, I know. If you're not single and you don't know what it's like out there, listen so you can have compassion for your single friends. Because what happens is at first it's exciting. You're like, 100,000 humans near me, right? And you go and you jump on, you start swiping. But I think what happens very quickly is we realize that these systems aren't gearing us for success, because we get stuck in the paradox of choice. So first of all, even though we're excited about the abundance, very, very quickly our brains go, wow, this is overwhelming. This is too much. And excitement goes to exhaustion. So, I mean, people spend up to 90 minutes, an average of 90 minutes a day swiping when they're on apps, right? It's so toxic for the brain. At the end of swiping, you don't feel closer to finding the one. You feel disillusioned and tired and discouraged, okay? And that's just the disappointment. And you said before, you're like, oh no, you spend this time and you might not match. Then there's like the antisocial behaviors, right? And again, anyone who's single will relate to this. You meet someone, like you match, you're excited, you're chatting, and then they just randomly ghost you. They unmatch, they disappear. I hear stories of people who've gone on multiple in-person dates and the person just ghosts. I heard a story recently from a Vette member. He was dating a girl for 2 months and she didn't break up with him. She just deleted him off everything and blocked him, right? Like, so we've built these weird antisocial behaviors, which, as you can imagine, someone ghosts you a couple times, it starts to put your safety up, right? Then there's like the lying, there's the age discrepancies where people lie about their age, they use the wrong photos, they're catfishing. There's the scams. $560 million was lost last year in America to dating scams, right? There's this kind of weird situation now where, because of the way we meet, this most vulnerable, tender, exciting part of our lives has also become one of the most dangerous part of our lives. And I'm always like, how are you supposed to connect with people, like open-heartedly, start a relationship, if you're literally managing safety the whole time? So having gone through that experience where I experienced all of those things, people who used the wrong pictures and I showed up on a date, they didn't look at all what they said. People who said they were in their early 40s and they were in their mid 50s. Men who were verbally abusive, men who just straight up lied, men who ghosted. And my male friends had the same. So I just think what I started to see was that the behaviors that we have normalized are antisocial behaviors. And so we have to use technology to help retrain and re-normalize us back to connective, healthy, loving behaviors.
Oh, I love how you're calling these kind of antisocial behaviors. Like, it's almost like we've set people up. So it happens almost innocently because it's so accepted. And so you created this whole new container that just naturally really brings out the best in people. It just opens up those pathways for real, genuine connection. So when you went about in this journey, what did you know that you wanted to preserve? Like, what's missing? So we want to do the antidote to that.
And the antidote is the right word. That is such a great word. It's like, it is that. And it's like, and I'll really own this too. I started out with the best of intentions when I was dating. What really disturbed me and made me want to build something new was that I noticed that despite my commitments to myself, I started ghosting people. I noticed that my behavior started to adapt because I was putting in all this effort to try connect. I was putting in all this effort to try maintain integrity. And I kept feeling like I was just being punished for it. I kept feeling like being vulnerable in those systems punished me. And so, even if, for instance, like if you're a man or a woman, if you don't put up a picture that is really filtered or super beautiful, you feel like you're not being in the competitive marketplace. And so it's these kind of systems that encourage us to slightly distort or slightly over exaggerate or slightly hide, right? So, and I noticed that behavior in myself and I was like, okay, so this isn't like people suck. Some people do suck. Most people are actually good people. Most people want to connect. So I was like, okay, how do we be, like you said, the antidote? I think there's a few things, which is that, for us, as I think about like how you teach with relationships and the kind of self-awareness and vulnerability required to do that. So I just want to acknowledge up front that like what we built is for a very certain kind of person. we built this platform for the person who is doing work on themselves. They are self-reflective. They care about a good quality human connection. That type of person, even though they often do well with people, find these systems especially painful because essentially you're being asked to compromise your values and your integrity just to play. It's like, gross. So we want to build a world where we allow that. So we figured, okay, listen, to do that, there's a few things, which is that I think the biggest mistake that the apps have is that they only use images. And you can see everyone's scrambling in to build video in now because I think the truth is, like, you and I sitting here chatting, we've never met in person. I have such a strong sense of who you are. I can feel your energy. I can hear how you talk. Like, something about video helps us to really get a vibe for somebody, whether it's the nonverbal, whatever it is. Even just seeing someone on video for a few seconds gives us so much more information than a picture. So in Vette, we have no pictures because what we notice is that so many people who do well, they get passed over because they're not like a super, super, super hottie. And I'm always like, man, I don't think symmetry is the right reason to pick a partner, right? Like, get me wrong. I don't think you've ever sat down with a couple and gone, hey guys, you're really kind to each other. You've got great communication, but you're just not symmetrical enough. Like, this one, it's not going to work, right? No. So working with this idea of like giving people more information by having a video only platform. So your first interactions with people and the learning environments are all in this way. And like you mentioned, we vet, and vetting for us means we actually background check people. Again, looking to safety. And I mean, I had a really terrible experience. I went on a date once with someone off an app, by the way, which said that they did vetting, but all they did was link in LinkedIn. And I went on a date with this man, and my best guess is he probably had some kind of mental health struggles. And on the first date, he lost it at me and he was screaming at me. He sent me the screens of abusive text messages afterwards. And it was such a painful experience for me that, I wanted to shut down and never go on a date ever again. And I complained to them. I lodged a complaint and they just said, hey, your complaint's been lodged, but you will never hear the verdict of what we decide. And I just remember this was the League. And the League, by the way, is like the lesser of evils. But like, I was so shocked that there was no real conflict resolution system. There was no real honoring of safety, no accountability. So even those soft vetting systems versus like our hard vetting system, and like even now we're taking applications, we've already had to decline a few people because we did the background check and we found, unsuitable criminal history for the kind of community we're trying to build. So it's a very curious balance, but I'd say the very first thing is creating safety by vetting for the correct people, self-aware, in integrity, care about love, and willing to tell the truth. So that's piece one.
So lovely to have that safe place. And so for anybody out there who's kind of given up, I am so sorry to hear about the experience that you had. And I think a lot of people have those stories and sometimes multiple of these experiences of not feeling safe. And so it's so easy just to translate that as to like, there's nobody good out there. I'm never going to find someone, just to kind of give up on love. And so it's profound what you're doing because you're creating this safe place where people can kind of open their hearts to the possibility like, okay, this is different. And so there is hope out there for anyone who's had one of these painful, kind of frightening, whatever it might be, experiences. I'm so grateful. So safety
comes first, right? And I'm imagining even when you're coaching couples, like there's no way two people can talk to each other deeply without there being a feeling of safety. And I think it's something we've forgotten. It's just like, it's the idea of safety in online dating has become, well, I hope he doesn't murder me. You know what I mean? Versus like, what about emotional safety? Like, what about creating a world where it's normal to go on a first date and to be able to ask and answer deep questions, right? Like the types of behaviors we are trying to normalize in Vette come to not just like keeping people basic safe, but giving them the ability to have deep connection. I'm actually curious because I know you must have heard so many hundreds and thousands of like origin stories of couples, like how they met. I'm wondering, have you tracked any patterns of the way people tend to meet and fall in love? This is one of those things I'm always curious about.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, people that have done a lot of swiping, certainly, especially people that are, more newly together in the past decade or so, that comes up. A lot of people, it's like a friend of a friend. That's a really wonderful way because they know that they kind of would be a compatible match. So I would say online apps certainly have been helpful, but it's usually a journey. And usually they've come to us because, they can, of course, not to make them wrong or bad in any way. There are some out there that it ends up working well and there's a happy ending. I would say it's really helpful when there's some personal connection. So I usually encourage people, like, let your friends and loved ones and neighbors and people know, when you're open and available, but it can be really challenging. Otherwise, people that have been together a long time, maybe they met somebody doing a certain hobby or in a yoga class or a club or whatever, or at church, whatever it might be. It's less and less as we move more and more into a virtual.
But isn't that interesting? And I'm so glad you said that. It's something that I've suspected. We've been kind of like sniffing around into it and asking people like yourself who work with couples, because we're like, how did people meet before online dating? And the answer is always something like this, where it's in social circumstances, whether that's in sort of friends of friends, like you said, or whether that's in a hobby group, or whether that's at work. It's in some kind of socialized environment where, the people in that environment are going to have something in common with you already, right? I think because of this is something that we've lost, because the truth as well, we're also busy. And like my friends and I have that joke where we're like, what are we going to do? Like, go hang out at like Pilates class and hope that like the one guy that comes to Pilates happens to be single and happens to like me. Or I'm going to go sit in the park by myself and try and look cute and available, or at the bar. Like, so it's become this funny thing where like, it's hard. I call it mating in the wild. It's kind of hard to go mating in the wild. But the problem with online dating is I think people feel like there's a lack of magic. When you meet someone like that, it's like, oh, I met somebody, and you have the feeling of, do they like me? Don't they? And the butterflies. It feels like it's meant to be, or there's some spontaneous element. The swiping matching stuff feels transactional. One of the reasons why it falls flat, we get disappointed, is because we're literally looking at a romantic resume and making these kinds of like very dry transactional assessments. So that was another thing I wanted to fix with Vette, was like, how do we use the best of technology so that we can have the abundance of people, so we can find people with the kind of specific values we have and lifestyles we have, like all the good stuff of having that kind of access to people online. How do we use that, but then kind of happily marry it with like something more like that social spontaneous feeling? And so I always try to explain to people, Vette is not a dating app. It's not a dating site. It's a vetted virtual social club for singles. And the coolest part about it, like one of the things I'm proudest about, is that if you become a member and you apply and you jump in, we've created like a whole world. Like we have a virtual speakeasy, a virtual gym, a virtual temple to learn meditation, a virtual playroom, a virtual salon. And these spaces all have like learning resources and community leaders. So the whole thing is a learning experience. And then we throw these live virtual events. And so you might one day, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you'll come in and do a session on like this like conscious communication, or like getting clear on what you want. And so you have all these amazing experiences and classes, and you jump in on video with everyone, but everyone you meet along the way is vetted and a single. So here you are having that kind of social experience where you're belonging to a group in a community, you're having these shared experiences, but you know that everyone you're meeting is kind of like in the same lane looking for the same thing. So we've been experimenting with this, trying to like really use the best of both worlds. We ran our beta the last few months. It's been super fun. It's been so wonderful to watch how people use the system and how it interacts. And what I've really learned out of this is, like I said, like everyone who came into experience has said the same thing, which is that they want to find good quality connection, and the apps don't set them up for it. And what we noticed was that when we gave people a chance to actually talk and to connect and to communicate, they really took it. So it's a brave, wild new world. But, I think like you said, people are like the right kind of people are really done with what's been built out there.
It's so brilliant what you've designed. So there's safety, and you're setting people up to actually have these genuine, deep, meaningful, authentic connections, and to know there's like an efficiency of it too. Because what I hear so much from friends, clients, loved ones, you can invest, 90 minutes a day. That's a great statistic. So much time only to find out the moment you meet that it's not a good match. So I love the efficiency of it as well, and these different rooms. So absolutely, we'll put the links to all the things in the show notes, because you have to check out. It's like playful and mystical, and like what you've designed. I love the aesthetic of it, that you get to have this experience. It's so unique. So thank you so much for all like being so thoughtful in your design of it to bring back like the heart of human connection.
Well, they say you know, we always build things for ourselves, right? So I have to say this was truly born out of the pain that I felt being single. And even though I'm a great dater, like I have a great dating life, I think, you know, I care deeply about just learning about that part of life. And I would say, again, people who care sometimes struggle the most, because every time you're having to be in one of these situations, it feels like a compromise of your values. It feels like settling for lower standards. It can be very emotionally and psychologically painful.
Yeah. Absolutely. And are you getting to hear some of the love stories of people?
Well, that's what I'm super excited about. But you know, the stage we're in right now, which is really exciting, is that we're in what we call the preloading stage. So we're open for applications for founding members. But you know, because it's a dating site, we want to make sure there are enough people inside. So when we open the club doors for real, it's actually fun. So we have like just until, I think it's, what are we now, September? Until the end of October, we have a preloading period, which is a special deal for anyone who wants to come in. You can apply, and essentially you get your first month as a free trial, and then you get to be the first in. And so we'll do a big club launch in the beginning of November, and it'll be like imagine like a great massive virtual singles party, but for like self-aware singles, all video. And you know, the funny thing is like, I think about, you know, whether it's with relationships, like I know you are so amazing with the way that you have tools and like really helpful, practical ways for people to break down what could feel like, whether it's an overwhelming conflict or obstacle, or we do the same with the dating. I think so much of what people struggle with, why they say their dating life doesn't work, is because they see it as this kind of like mysterious, confusing thing that they don't know what to do about, right? And so what we wanted to do as well was like to build in a system which helps people to get the most out of it. So like part of Vette is, we call like there's an intentional dating framework, the 3 H's. My co-founder, Lauren Zander, she was a kind of like a relationship coach for a long time. And she had this model, which was like the 3 voices, like the head, the heart, and the hoo-ha, which is 3 voices that you need to know about yourself. Like, what does each voice want? Like the head is like, what's good on paper? Age range, where they live, do they want kids, don't they? Like all the things that you know is like, what would make you good on paper? And that's the stuff that's not so romantic, but I've learned that will kick you in the long run. Like if you don't get that right 2 or 3 years from now, you're like, eh. You're like working through it, right? And the heart is like love, trust, the emotional component. How do you feel with this person? How do you resolve conflict? How do you take care of each other? And then, you know, interestingly enough, the voice that I think people talk the least about, but can often run their dating life without realizing it, is sexual attraction. And being honest about like, what do you want? And I always say to people, like, people tell me their dating list. Oh, I want her to be 5'8" and blonde, or he's 6 this. And I'm like, do you? Or do you just want to feel attracted to them? Do you want to have a deep sense of attraction to them? Because I think attaching attraction to arbitrary stuff is silly. I always say to people, like, if you look at your last few real romantic partners, would you have swiped on them on an app? And most of the time they're like, oh, no. And so like understanding, and we would say with this, like getting clear about what you want in each of these areas just helps you to build a framework so that as you date, so that's all built into our system. But we also have this whole culture around asking great questions. And this to me is honestly, I think it's a cornerstone of dating. I think it flows into relationships too, because you never want to stop communicating honestly and openly. And so we teach people how to ask great questions. And even in the beginning, like you'll see if you go through the sign up process, when you're making your video profile, you have to answer for each area of your life, what do you love about this area? But you also have to answer, what sucks about this area? And we built this in from the very beginning because we wanted to teach people that dating isn't just like a highlight reel. If you're just going out there and you're like selling yourself like a romantic product and pitching yourself and trying to do this, you're going to build a relationship that is not necessarily in the most authentic direction. And you're not building in the ability to connect around what's hard. And so we encourage people from the very beginning to learn how to say out loud things they've struggled with or things that they're in process around, and being able just from the beginning to have that. And because we make everybody do it, it's not weird. You're not that like one weird person who's like on Tinder being like, well, I'm having a hard time. I've been, dealing with some financial stress, but I'm working. Like, no, like you can't do that on the other apps. People be like, ew. But if it's normal, if we say, hey guys, like we're all going to do this, we're all going to share something we love and something we're struggling with, it becomes normalized. And then we have the system, which I love, called the virtual vibe check, which is, a one-to-one video environment where if you meet someone you like, the first step before you meet in person is to jump in. And we've built this amazing database of questions. And so you jump in and it's all automatically facilitated with questions. So it's kind of like a little game, like jumping in. And I know people do this now. They take those card games, right? They take it on the dates. There's a whole bunch for people who are in relationships. Just this idea that, like, if you can ask better questions, you get to know each other deeper. You can get a sense if there's a match or not very, very quickly versus like, hey, what's your job? Where are you from? So I think, there's the two parts like I explained are creating a safe environment with a good vetting process, and then really creating a vibrant world which values high quality connection and learning. So as you can see, I know that's a lot, but we really did build Vette as a conscious response to the dysfunction I've seen in the dating environments. And yeah, we're excited to offer a genuine alternative finally.
It's so good. If I was single, it is exactly where I would go. I just have no doubt this is going to be, you all are going to be hearing so much more about Vette. What you've created is so special. I haven't seen anything like it. So you've learned a lot about kind of what makes for a good date, and these questions, you give kind of a little sneak peek into them, I know, on your site. So do you have any favorites? Because this is really relevant.
Yes, this is like my favorite thing. Like I teach all my friends, I'm kind of like, I'm an unofficial dating coach to a lot of New York singles. Let's put it that way. And there's a few things to it. And this is how I'd say it. For anyone who's like dating right now, asking beautiful questions is a game changer. It can change any date from like very like stuck on the surface, to something deep and connective that even if it's not a romantic fit, you'll have a fantastic time and they'll have a fantastic time. But the first thing is, before you just ask a question, I realized that you have to be able to create a permission space. So what I do is I tend to jump on a date and let's say I've met on camera. I video date first. So I do a 10-minute call to see if there's a vibe, because otherwise it's like you don't know and you turn up and you can tell in 2 minutes, right? So do that on video and save yourself the time. And then you meet in person. You can say hi, chit chat, just do the normal things, get seated or go for a walk, whatever you're doing. But like 5 or 10 minutes in, I'll say to them, hey, listen, right now I'm asking like all the new people I meet these 2 great questions that I heard. Would you be game if I asked you? So you find a fun way to like essentially ask them permission, like make it like a fun game versus being like, hello, John, I have questions for you. Question 1, which then feels like an interrogation or an interview, right? So making it light, making it fun. I've never asked a person that question and had them be like, no. They're usually like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. Ask me questions. And I start easy. So the easiest one is actually from Elizabeth Gilbert, who I love. And she took this question. She asked every single person she met for, I think it was almost a year, this question. And it's so simple, but it's, what are you most excited about in your life right now? And why this question is unbelievable is because even if you take the most boring person, like someone you're like, and you ask them that question, they come alive. Their face changes. Like they're sitting there and then the smile breaks over their face. And then they will share with you what is lighting them up the most. And so what you get to see is them lit up. And it's so much more attractive when someone's like in their passion and in their interest, right? But you also get to learn something profound about them, and so that question is a very safe, easy way to start that. And honestly, like that question can end up in like a 15-minute rabbit hole. There's another safe one, which can kind of give a little bit more of room to play, which is, what's something about you I would never know unless you told me? Or like, what's something I'd never guess about you? Or what's something that people are surprised when you tell them? So this gives people a chance to share something maybe like a little unusual about them. As people say things like the best answer I ever heard to this, swear to God, this is a guy who's like ex-Navy SEAL, tough dude. He's like, he said, he goes, well, when my sister and I were kids, I was like 6, she was 8. Every summer we would join the circus and we worked as jugglers for the circus. I'm like, what?
You would never guess that.
So it's such a great question that gives the other person the scope to play. And it's just the kind of thing that even though they're easy questions, it changes the tone and the quality of the conversation, because now you're not stuck on like, oh, so you have 3 sisters, cool, and okay, so then you see them on Christmas, night, you're out of that. Now you're like, wow, tell me how, who, oh, right? And then I would say, like, I like to take it a little deeper. So if the person's responding well, at that point, I like to ask them a question that maybe gives them a chance to show some vulnerability. For me, as someone who's dating, I like to see how someone talks about things that are hard. I want to be with somebody who knows what they struggle with, can talk about it, has the language and the self-awareness to be able to have those kinds of conversations. It's just really important to me. And what I'm noticing is it's important to a lot of people. So I asked them, like, what's something you've struggled with and how did you overcome it? So again, easy in the sense that I'm setting them up to succeed. I'm not being like, what's your deepest, darkest secret, right? Like I'm giving them like a redemption arc. But it's really cool because people, again, will share things that are often unexpected. And on a date, we get nervous. Like, we often look at the person we're dating like, whoa, they're so this, they're so that. We could be a little in our head about it. And hearing someone share something vulnerable connects us to them as a human. It really puts it into perspective. And again, that kind of vulnerable sharing, I've never seen it. I've never experienced it go horribly wrong. People know how to pitch themselves. They know how to share what they're comfortable sharing. And I just find it really connective. And of course, like I would also say, couching all of these questions, you have the permission at the beginning, but also you have to be a good listener. Like there's nothing worse than someone asking a sensitive question and they give you like you're like, hey, so what are you struggling with? And they're like, oh, well, during COVID, I had one of my family members get really sick and pass away, and I wasn't able to be there. And, there's a lot of grief that my family are going through, which was really hard. But what we've done is actually we end up building a beautiful digital memorial. And that's been an amazing process because we all ended up kind of working together and learning more about our family. So they're sharing this like beautiful thing. And then you're like, oh, cool. Okay. So now, like this, that is the way to run over somebody. So I'd also say that asking questions is important, but asking for permission for them and then being a listener, like reflecting back what you heard. Like, I'm sure this is stuff you teach in relationships, but on a date, if you can be present and hear them and listen, and just like show that you've listened by being like, wow, that's really beautiful. I'm glad that your family were able to have that experience together. It's a game changer. It's real game changer. So those dating skills, I think, again, go towards building a great foundation for a relationship, but they also will help you make a better assessment on whether the person in front of you is a match. Because if I ask that question, the person can't give me any answer, I know they're probably not going to be an emotional match for me. I love questions, can you tell?
I do too, so much, so it's lighting me up, and I love that they're so playful. I mean, it does feel like a game, and the beauty of these that you've shared with us, thank you, is that it's like the journey. I think a lot of the experience people have with dating is maybe it feels like I wasted all of that time and energy. And this is like, wow, I get to, like every human is this treasure chest, and I get to have this meaningful connection, learn something new about humanity that I wouldn't otherwise, and enjoy the process. So I love your focus on that.
That is a beautiful reframe of it. And I'll actually ask you, because I always think about it from the other side, and this is where I have no experience. I'm like, wow, again, you've worked with so many couples who I'm sure, as you are in a relationship, you discover more about each other. And maybe you go, gosh, I wish I'd asked that question. So I'm wondering, do you have any suggestions of questions you should ask people, whether it's, maybe second, third, fourth date, a little bit deeper in, but what are some of the questions we should be asking each other as we're dating if we're trying to create like a really good, loving relationship?
Such a good question. I love the ones that you share. I think you're spot on. And so this is like anybody that's out there in relationship, in the beginning dating, like what kind of excites people. I love the unexpected thing, and also how we move through challenges. I think those are spot on. And I'm curious about someone's growth, like how that's something that is so key, I think, to having a thriving relationship long term, is that someone wants to keep growing, because relationships are living things. And so even if it starts really strong, if someone's like, I'm okay at just kind of, coasting, and if a relationship is coasting, it's going to decline over time. And so yeah, can they get lit up about just personal growth in general? So yeah, like what books are you reading? What is it about them that interests you? Like what are new things you're learning and exploring about yourself? Or what are some things you've learned, how are the ways that you are growing, that you have grown. So that would be really interesting to me, because I find that in long-term relationships, that commitment to our own personal growth and to also learning about relationships, because then it's like, oh, we need to learn if they haven't yet. And I'm a lifelong student of, learning how to be in relationships. So someone that just has a learning orientation and a growth mindset, I think would definitely be something I'd be on the lookout for.
And I actually remember you saying, you came on my podcast and we were digging into this idea of what are some of the characteristics you can know early on for what will make your love last? And that idea of the person's willingness to be in that growth process with themselves and with a partner. And it's so funny because I can understand how that maps forward. And yet you're right. Like, how many of us really sit down when we're dating and have those conversations, right? About that, or even filtering for that. Such a key thing.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I'd be curious too about the other relationships in their life and even how they share about them. So any friendships, colleagues, what are the relationships that mean the most to you? What is it about them that means the most? What are the most challenging? What's challenging about it? Not necessarily asking about past partners. I know that that can be.
Well, but this is interesting because this is where I have a kind of slightly unpopular opinion, but I found it worked incredibly well for me. Is that I do, maybe not the first date, maybe the second date, but I will ask them, hey, listen, so tell me about your last couple significant relationships. What worked about them? What didn't? Why did they end? And to your point, because there's a couple of reasons for this. Firstly, I just think it's ridiculous that we put our heads in the sand about it. I understand it's not comfortable. I understand we can feel jealous or whatever it is. I feel that intensely. Just for anyone listening, I'm not one of those kind of rare humans who has no jealousy. I am the opposite. I used to be that girl who was never mention that you've ever had an ex-girlfriend ever, right? I'm the only woman you've ever loved. But I just learned that I missed a huge part of that person's life. So I couldn't really make things make sense. But I also missed, potential warning signs, because understanding someone's relationship patterns, understanding how they understand it or don't is key. Hearing how they talk about it. And we all know this. The funniest thing ever is when someone's like, "Ugh, all my exes are crazy." I'm like, are they? All your exes are crazy. That either tells me that you have some type of attachment style which has you seek out people who are not particularly well, so still you, or you have an interpretation of those relationships which makes it all their fault and none of your fault, which to me is a massive red flag, right? So even hearing the greatest kind of response is seeing, can someone answer kindly and talk kindly and fairly about their previous partners, for me is a huge indicator. Not comfortable, but I'd say essential.
Oh, I'm all for it. I love it. I stand with you in being an advocate for that. Yeah, it is so illuminating. Okay, so I love this. So when it comes to having a juicy, meaningful, connective date for anyone tuning in, highly encourage you to, Vette just sets you up. So I love what you're doing, because if someone feels a little nervous, is this going to be a weird question to ask? It's the social norm, and we just become more like what we surround ourselves with. And so when you're already held in the container where, we just go there, you're held and carried by it. So you don't have to do the heavy lifting yourself. So that's, and
you don't have to ask the questions. Cause I think this is what we found is that I love asking questions. I've learned how to do it well. I think people get a good sense of it. The cool thing about using the video system we have, the virtual vibe check, is that because the questions are coming up, if it's a question that you don't like, you can both laugh about it and be like, "Oh, I'm not going to answer that. No, ha ha ha." It doesn't feel like it's one of you being ask, answer. It feels like you're having a shared experience. So again, I think we're trying to find ways to make deep connection normalized, make it as safe as possible. And then what I'm noticing, of course, is that as people get really familiar with it, we were watching as we were beta testing all this, people would jump into those private dates and they would use the first couple questions as a prompt. But then by that point, they would be in some epic rabbit hole. But something interesting, so interesting that they sort of forgot to use the rest of the prompts, right? So this is what we notice, is that people want to talk, they want to connect, but you just need a little bit of help, a little bit of ice breaking, which is fair enough,
So good. Okay, so ask more meaningful questions and listen. I love that you're also highlighting that. So anybody that's out there dating, or you're dating your partner of 30 years. These are things that never, that we want to keep alive. That is a key in long-term love, is that we're always dating our partner, that we stay passionately curious about their inner world and what excites them and how they're growing, all the things. So ask meaningful questions and then be a really good listener. Like, allow them to feel deeply heard. It's such a rare experience in this world to have someone who's really taking in and receiving what we're sharing and reflecting that back to us. So those are golden tips.
And for anyone who's listening, and like some of the objections I get to this is people go, oh, but then I won't get to share anything about me, or they're afraid that they're not going to get their stage time on the date. And I would say, like, listen, there's no universe where you ask a question, you have a deep connection with somebody, and if they're a balanced, healthy person, they don't ask back and you don't end up in conversation. Now, if you are asking these questions and the person shows no interest in you and does not ask any questions back, that to you is a clear indicator, like probably maybe not a good match, right? Versus, like, I think a lot of dates are person A talks about themselves and then stops. And then person B talks about themselves. And there's no crossover or like meaningful dialogue or conversation that's happening. It's just people doing presentations on their romantic value. So if you're worried that like being active and asking questions means that you won't get a chance to share, I just let you know that like it's very rare. In fact, you'll often get to share much deeper to a much more attentive listener if you lead the way and role model that.
So good. So good. And people will feel so much better, which is such a huge part of it too, which is why video is so powerful. So do you have any other things that are like your favorite ingredients for making for a really good date in the early stages?
Yeah, I do actually. And what's funny is that what I would often encourage people to do is to break out. I mean, it depends on who you are, but I would say consider breaking out of the traditional sitting across from a table, having an interview style. Going for a walk is amazing. What you find is like if you could do something low stakes where you're able to move through time and space together, you're not having to sit opposite each other, you have a little bit more sort of flexibility. Just having like setting yourself up for a date that's a little bit more flowy like that can change it too. Because I think we have this model like where we do like we sit down and we drink wine. I'm sober, so for me it's like going and sitting down and having a drink is unnerving because I'm drinking water and the other person is like, oh, I'm in trouble. You know what I mean? Like, but I think creating an experience which has a little bit more, it doesn't have to always be so focused on talking, can add a lot to a date, take a lot of pressure off, but also give you a sense of getting out of your head and getting a bit into your body. I said when we're dating, of course, we're assessing for like intellectual connection, but we're also assessing for, like you said, how do I feel around this person? How do they behave? Am I attracted to them, right? And like sometimes we need a little bit of breathing room to feel into that. So whether it's, I mean, these are the very, very cliches. So obviously, please design better dates, unless you can tell that I'm a little rusty on this, because I just go for a walk in the park. I have like a standard. You grab a coffee, go for a walk in the park. You can go to mini golf. You can go walk around an art museum. Like just like little things you can do, which again take the pressure off it and let it be a little bit more playful.
Wonderful. I love that. It does bring out a different part of us, like when we're holding our body and moving in different ways and engaging in different sets. So great. And again, it's like no matter what, you get to have a good walk and a great, I love that you said putt-putt, because that's so fun.
It's like silly low stakes stuff, but like it's also, I was talking to someone today about flirting. I was interviewing them about can you learn to flirt? And we're talking about like the fact that the mistake people make with flirting is to think that flirting is sexual. I'm like, it doesn't have to be. In fact, sexual flirting can feel really creepy and uninvited. Flirting is stuff like, it's like fun teasing. So if you're in a putt-putt course, you're joking with each other. You're like teasing or like, oh, like, I think the person with the highest score should win, right? Like it's like having little fun flirty moments. Having a shared experience like that makes flirting easier. It's weirdly hard to flirt at a restaurant because what are you going to flirt about? You're like, oh yeah, candle on the table is like it's just like you've got limited stuff to flirt about. So it's like again putting yourself in motion gives you stuff to think about, talk about. You're having a shared experience. You can kind of playfully nudge each other. It sounds so silly, but this is the
so
stuff
true.
that builds together, you know.
I love it so much. And again, it's like this element of playfulness and fun that allows the journey to be so much more enjoyable, because it can start to feel really heavy and a lot of pressure and
if
performing,
you're
all
someone who,
those
and
things.
I hear this all the time, that people are like, I hate dating. I'm like, well, what are you doing? And they tell me their dating flow, they're matching, they're texting, and they're going straight from text to the same restaurant to have a drink, right? They're doing the exact same thing. They're not vetting properly. So they're often ending up in a situation where they're stuck at a bar with someone that in the first 2 minutes they knew they didn't like. So I'm like, well, this is silly, right? Versus like get your vetting process sorted. So like come to Vette, but if you're not on Vette, then I would say, only swipe on people you really, really like. Be clear about what you want. Only swipe on people you really like. If you match with someone, connect with them, do a video call within the first few days of connecting. And the line I use is I go, hey, I'm really enjoying chatting. Do you want to jump on a quick video call and let's make sure we both pass the psychopath test? And it's like a funny little joke. And they're like, okay, sure. And you can jump on for a quick call. And then if there's a vibe, go on a date. If not, be like, hey, it was really great to connect. I don't really feel that there's chemistry between us, but thanks so much. Done. Right? Don't even go on a date. But if you're going on a date, do something you like doing, because you're exactly to your point. Dating, like, you have to go on a bunch of dates. So if you don't like sitting at a bar and talking, don't sit at a bar and talk. It's gonna suck. If you like to work out, invite them to go to a class. If you want to, I don't know, if you're an artist, like, go check out what art gallery you're looking forward to. Like, we can design our dating lives however we want. And to your point, it should be fun, because A, you won't get exhausted, but B, when are we most attractive? When we're having fun. So it's a great revamp for a dry dating life.
Amazing wisdom, Mia. Thank you. How about red flags? Are there anything I hear people talk about, like, what do I want to be on the lookout for? So any of those?
Oh, so many. Yeah. And listen, because again, I've heard stories that range from disappointing to really dangerous. And so you mentioned I was a lawyer. I did some criminal defense for a period of time as well. And it's interesting, like, there's a broad spectrum of humanity. And when you're dating strangers from the internet, you have to be aware of that. You just have to be aware of it. The biggest thing is this: your intuition knows, like, your gut knows. Our spidey sense for what's off is extremely good. The problem is that we're trying to give everyone the benefit of the doubt and be like, oh, well, I'm just da-da-da. And honestly, the truth is, like, time and time again, trust the spidey sense. If something feels off about somebody, even if you can't point to it or prove it, just go, listen, you're not here making, like, a friend. You're here looking for your life partner. So if something is off, bless it and walk away. Be like, I don't need to know. I don't need to prove it. I trust my gut. So that's the really subtle one that I cannot say it enough, especially to women. If you feel something is off, honor that. If you ever feel uncomfortable or in danger, women don't like to upset or be impolite. Get up and go. I again, cannot say enough. If you feel anything is, like, wrong, you just say, hey, listen, it was great meeting you. I'm really sorry, but I actually have to go. Thank you so much for your time. And you go. Don't stick around. Don't wait to find out. This is where bad stories end. So those are the dangerous ones. I mean, but then obviously, here's obvious things if you're on the sites. Anyone who won't go on video. This is why I love the video call. If you say to someone, you're like, hey, do you want to jump on a quick video call? And they're like, no. Yeah. So many people have been scammed out of money because they don't want to identity verification check. And the truth is, like, most of this is like people putting their head in the sand. They don't want to, but it's better to have a clean cut of disappointment, So anyone who doesn't actually want to go on video is probably not a good sign. In terms of actual on the dates, people who talk poorly about other people is never a good sign, especially previous partners. That's why we're talking about asking that question. If someone's, like, going on and on about the ex-girlfriend, if they're being mean about people, that is how they will eventually talk about you. That's just the truth, I think, again, I like to ask people what they're looking for in a relationship, and I like to believe them, because here's what we do again is we go, hey, so I'll be like, I say what I'm going for first. No. I ask them first, because, like, I know what I've experienced on dates is if I say what I want, they'll tend to adapt to be like, yeah, me too. But if you say, hey, listen, so what are you looking for right now? If they say to you, you know what, I don't really know, I'm just kind of like checking out the scene, I'm kind of enjoying being single and being casual, and you're looking for a relationship, believe them. Oh, cool. Well, listen, I hope you have so much fun with it. I think I'm at that stage where I'm really looking for something a bit more serious. I think I'm looking for my person. So, I love that. I think you're going to have a great time. But I don't think this probably isn't a match. I've just learned listen to people, listen to them and believe them when they tell you things about who they are and what they want. The amount of time we can spend chameleoning and pretzeling ourselves because we like we're like, they're so great, but they've told us clearly that they're not interested in what we're interested in, right? So we're looking for that kind of alignment. But then honestly, I think the other things are really, for me, around being able to take accountability. And this goes towards the growth thing, right? Like if I ask someone about their life or things have happened or gone wrong, if they aren't able to talk about it in a way where they can acknowledge their role in it, that's a huge warning sign. Someone who lives as the victim of their life is just not very fun to be around, but there are real warning signs there. I've had interactions, and many people, there's a lot of this on the internet right now about like, what is it to be like with someone with a narcissistic personality disorder or BPD? And, that's a big topic right now, and I'm not qualified to speak on it. I would say that the through line I see is that a radical inability to take accountability for oneself. If you're sitting across from someone, they're like, yeah, listen, I made this massive mistake when I was 22, and like, I see how I did it. I was really driven by my fear and insecurity. So how I addressed it was this: that person very unlikely to have a personality disorder. So taking accountability. And then I said, like, same as you, growth. And if you ask someone like what they're learning, what they're doing, and they have nothing, and they think it's stupid, and they think personal growth is weird, you're not in for a good time.
Oh, these are marvelous. You have shared so much about the different kind of ingredients and spices and flavoring that make for a meaningful date that will allow us to enjoy the journey no matter what, and that will set us up for optimal success to really find our person and to just put us on the path of having this conscious, intentional relationship with them. So I love that. And then some things also to look forward. These are so good. I resonate with every single thing that you just shared. Those are so clear. So thanks for all that. And then you've created this platform that just kind of mitigates those red flags and sets people up so naturally to have the kind of connection that I think we all really long for. It just feels scary or awkward, or this isn't the social norm, so maybe it's not appropriate. And you're like, no, let's normalize this kind of heart-based, intentional, meaningful connection. So yay, yay. So you are on the Thriving Relationship Show. So one of the things I love to ask people from your unique perspective, what do you think a thriving relationship is? Like, what are you hoping to be setting people up to experience in this lifetime?
I think a thriving relationship, gosh, I think about this all the time. I'm obsessed like you are. I think a thriving relationship is one where two whole people intentionally come together because they understand that there is a beautiful match of values, an alignment of purpose, an alignment of desires, and they come together and they make a deliberate, intentional, mutual commitment and design whatever love they want. I have no judgments about what kind of love people want. I have friends who are in incredible open marriages. I have people who are, poly and have just the most amazing connections with their lovers. I'm a hot monogamist. I believe in hot monogamy, but I believe in hot monogamy in the sense of like, you get together and you design the parameters of your monogamy. And I think a thriving relationship is one that is 1 + 1 = 3. So you come together, you're intentional, you commit, you design, and now you get to be in this kind of profound supportive witnessing of each other's lives, where I think there is a mutual ability to love, to mirror, to support, to cheer for. I think one of our greatest needs as humans is just to be seen and to be witnessed. And by having a powerful, thriving partnership, we can provide that to each other. And, in the long run, I really also think it just should have elements of real fun. Like there's work. No, like there really is. And like this, our personal growth world, we can get really into the work. We're like working on our relationships, right? And I would say that's the commitment of making it work. And there should be real fun, love, fun, play. I think a good quality human relationship has the capacity to increase the texture and the richness of our life so much. That's why I'm so passionate about helping, create a system that does that. Creating healthy relationships means that people can have healthy families, raise healthy kids with healthy beliefs, and all of that goes into a more kinder, peaceful, happy world, right?
Oh, you are magnificent. My heart is just singing. Yes, and cheering to everything that you are sharing. Oh, so I just can't recommend highly enough for everyone to go check out what Mia has so masterfully created. I feel like you are the perfect gatekeeper, just like the gatekeeper and also like the welcoming committee of, yes, like conscious, intentional, thriving, beautiful love is possible. And here's the way, come over here.
Let's do it together. Come on, everybody. It's like, who wants to play this game? Like, who wants to play that create an exceptional partnership game? You? Okay, great. Let's go.
Oh, you are the perfect hostess of that party where like real love is born. So how can people learn more, sign up, get involved, join all the magic?
Absolutely. Well, listen, if you are interested, like I said, we are in this period up until the end of October accepting applications for founding members. You can go in and apply, and what happens is when we open the club early November, you'll be accepted. You'll have a free month trial, so you get to come in, check us out, see if you like us. Anyone who comes in after that point doesn't get that perk, but of course can apply. And yeah, just come in and you'll see like the actual application process will teach you a lot about the system and a lot about who we are. But it's really fun because as well as being your profile, it's really about you and what you want and what you're looking for. So you can go to lavette.love, or another easy way is you can find me on Instagram at @mymialux. And everything, like I said to you, all roads lead to Lavette. And yeah, go check us out. And even if you're just curious, apply, jump in. And when we open, you can get a sense of the system and see if the Lavette magic works for you.
Okay, we'll put all the links to all that goodness below. Be sure to check it out. Let your friends know. It has been such a treat to get to like send your links to all the people I love in my life who are on this quest to find their conscious partnership. And so your friends will thank you for it. So spread this far and wide. You're like starting a movement that is just what a gift to the world. Mia, thank you so much. Do you have any other final words of wisdom or love notes to share with everyone?
Yeah, I mean, I believe in exceptional love. I believe in finding and creating exceptional love. I think it's not a mystery. We can leverage on like incredible teachers like yourself. We can leverage on the research to know that it's possible and not to settle. And if you are discouraged, I get it. I really, really get it. And I'm so sorry for all the experiences, but know that it's possible. And, you can come and be part of a community of people with us who are really trying to change that.
Beautiful. So may this be a message of hope and inspiration and possibility. And there were things you shared that no matter what, if you're single, if you're just starting to date, or if you're in long-term love, that we can all apply of how to show up for another human in a way that connects our hearts and makes all of us better humans. So can't thank you enough. Thank you all so much for tuning in and just multiplying, spreading more love in the world. Truly, as any of us gets to experience more love, it just feels like there's more love grown in the world. So thank you all so much. Such a joy to be here. And again, we'll put the links to follow along on Mia's journey. I know it's just going to keep expanding everything you're doing. So much love. Big blessings to everyone. Want more support for your relationship or want to become trained as a certified relationship coach to help other couples? We warmly welcome you to head on over to centerthrive.com. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you next time on the Thriving Relationship Show.